We firmed up our Texas income property. Is residential investing in Canada dead? A dozen plus triplex conversions in Collingwood, Ontario, and launching a TV show with Kelly Caldwell. Welcome to the Truth About Real Estate Investing show. My name is Urban Cito. I am indeed Canadian, and I hope you're all enjoying a hot summer. But you know what's not hot? Condos. I spoke to one investor last week who's been abandoned by his realtor, who made all sorts of promises. The realtor helped this investor plan to acquire 2 condos pre-construction with the intention of selling one via assignment, and then using the profits to pay down the mortgage of the second property. The realtor also promised to rent out the condos as well. Fortunately, fast forward today, and then just for information, those condos were purchased pre-pandemic as well. So the timing is better than most purchases that people have made. But yeah, this hasn't worked out well. We all know how the condo market has fared in places like Toronto and Vancouver. It's not gone well. So now this investor, who happened to also lose their job, now carries 2 condos that have negative cash flow. The condos are rented at market rents. They're not a bad suite style either. They're both 1+ den, so they're not the micro condos that are having real difficulty selling this market. But he is negative cash flow $4,000 a month. You know what never made sense to me about pre-construction condos? How the cost per square foot was higher than existing resale condos. So often I would see pre-construction condos being sold for 16, 17, 18, even $2,000 a square foot, when equivalent resale used condos were like $1,400 per square foot. As a professional real estate investor, I invest for value. Not to speculate. If buying a new pre-construction condo, one would have to speculate that the price of real estate or the rest of the market would need to catch up that $200 per square foot, for example, in order for someone to actually make that appreciation that they're all banking on. The investment model never made sense to me, hence we kept our clients away from pre-construction condos unless there was a personal reason for them to own them and they were just really deep-pocketed. For investment, though, between double land transfer taxes in Toronto and tenant-friendly laws, especially after Canadians learn from folks like myself how technology has made investing in the USA so much easier to be a landlord, to directly own investment properties. If every future investor who considers pre-construction investing, I don't know what they will think. Actually, no, I know what they'll think when they see what the benefits are of owning a single-family house rental via share. I don't see why an investor ever buys a long-term rental condo ever again. I was going to say the same. I was going to say the maybe would be Calgary, Alberta, as that market's generally on fire. But even the president of RAIN, Patrick Francie, doesn't think it's wise to own a new condo in Toronto. Yet another truth about real estate investing for Canadians. I've yet to have a real estate professional disagree with me over diversifying to the USA. They may disagree with me publicly because, straight up, they earn commission selling Canadian real estate, either properties or new construction condos or mortgages. But I actually had a laugh with the buying agent for one of my properties. He was asking me about investing in the USA, as he too was interested. We chatted. I shared the financial projections for properties that my clients had purchased in landlord-friendly US states. And then I had to snap back to reality. My objective here was to sell my own property so that I can invest in the US. So I advised this realtor how the subject property was a much better investment, to which we both laughed because he knew. Last week, we also hosted a virtual tour of income properties in the USA. I showed the internal and external walkthrough videos by home inspectors for both my property and my clients' properties. I shared economic fundamentals of the markets that my clients have purchased in. We had a special guest, my friend and client, Derek Wormsbecker. I've given his Instagram is in the show notes. He shared about his experience in buying an infill. He bought a new house, but it was a new house built on a lot where that previous house was torn down. 1,250 square feet, 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2-car garage for. Wait for it. Actually, first of all, think about what does a 1,250 square foot house cost in your neighborhood? Think of that number. Are you sitting down? Derek paid a whopping 176,000 American dollars for this property. It's gorgeous. You can see the pictures on his Instagram, and it's now rented out by share for $1,425 per month. For those who are more sophisticated and know cap rates, that's a 6 cap that will cash flow with less than 35% down payment using a commercial mortgage, which for those who are more experienced in real estate investing, you know that's the more ideal style of mortgage, especially for scaling a portfolio. If you'd like to peruse deals like Derek's in Little Rock, Arkansas, simply go to my website, iwin.sharesfr.com, create a free account, browse real, current, and past deals, and book a call. There'll be a link there to book a call with me should you like to discuss opportunities in the States or even review what's in your existing portfolio, and especially in your Canadian portfolio. Again, that's iwin.sharesfr.com. If you'd like to learn how easy it is to be a US landlord, maintain 100% ownership and control while you let someone else do all the heavy lifting, you want to check this out. On to this week's show. This week's guest, we have the lovely Kelly Caldwell, who has converted over a dozen single-family houses, so regular single-family homes. She's added basement suites to them, and then when allowed to do so, she built garden suites in those backyards. So for those who don't know, a garden suite would be like a tiny home, basically a tiny home, a self-contained apartment in the backyard. Together with husband Jeff Caldwell, they've become leaders in their community in Collingwood, Ontario, filling in what's called the missing middle, working closely with local governments. As such, they've been invited to be a part of a new HGTV-inspired series called Home Sweet Home, where viewers can follow along with Jeff and Kelly as they navigate the world of accessory suite financing. Accessory suite's another word for a garden suite. Well, it's actually another word for basement suites as well. It's a general umbrella term. So again, you can follow along to discover the world of financing, design, and construction. And you'll be able to catch them on Rogers TV this fall, as well as their YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/it's home sweet home. I got links in the show notes, so you can check it all there. Kelly's journey is a bumpy one, especially with some significant challenges early on. She was barely an adult when she was orphaned as cancer took her father, her only living parent, away, leaving her as the eldest sibling of two teenage brothers. I can only imagine. Kelly shares about her remote investing, what that she's done way up north, so 3-4 hours drive up north, how she managed those renovations from far away. She shares the numbers around her typical basement conversions and garden suite. And for the first time on this show, a guest talks about the benefits of polished concrete flooring for both heating and finish. To me, I'm a real estate nerd, so I find this fascinating. For you fellow nerds out there, you're going to enjoy this episode. And if you can't tell, Kelly is no stranger to hard work. So please enjoy this show. Hi, Kelly. What's keeping you busy these days?
Hey, Erwin, thanks for having me. What is keeping me busy? Wow, we've got a lot going on right now. So Jeff and I are actively working on our existing portfolio. So we're operating under More Homes Built Faster Act. So we've got a portfolio of properties that are already single family homes that we converted into duplexes. And then using that More Homes Built Faster Act, we're, doing that gentle infill. We're adding detached carriage houses, so third unit, talking about the ability to add a fourth unit in Collingwood specifically. But for anybody who's listening that doesn't know, that More Homes Built Faster Act in Ontario states that any residentially zoned property that's connected to municipal services can have up to 3 dwelling units per residentially zoned lot. So that wasn't the case when Jeff and I started building out our portfolio, but now it is the case. So we're going back to those properties and building detached carriage homes. So that's part of what's keeping us busy. The other thing that's really wild that's happened is that Jeff and I were approached by a production company. So they were really excited and they wanted to start a show that was all about accessory dwelling units, or that term is now going to be called accessory ARUs, accessory residential units, I think is what the province is going to be calling them. And so the show is all about that. So it's all about what we look for, how we calculate, the build process, the finances, the tenanting process, and the fact that we hold these properties long term. So we've been filming that since Christmas time, and it is set to be sent out into the world this fall.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
You didn't mention, don't you own properties in like Sudbury as well?
We do, yeah. So we own a portfolio of properties. We co-own a portfolio of properties in Sudbury, and we also own in the Stratford area.
Oh boy, okay, you're everywhere. Okay, oh boy, I don't even know where to start. So you mentioned Collingwood and you're mentioning carriage homes. There's so many names for these things. Garden Suite comes up a lot. ADU
Mhm.
seems to be the technical language for most, and they're saying that is it the province wants to call it ARU.
ARU, that's what I've heard. Yeah, that they're going to be creating
Okay,
this universal term ARU
right. But it all means the
initial.
same thing, no?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. We're working with ARU for now, then, folks. Accessory residential unit.
Yeah.
And so let's just define it. That means basement apartment as well. That means the tiny house in your backyard. That all
Yeah.
counts.
I think it depends, municipality to municipality, what the exact definition of it is within the
Right.
bylaws.
Right.
But very generally, you got it.
Right. Okay. So very generally, and that's a good point, is that every municipality is different. There really is no blanket statement on what to do anywhere.
No, and that's the thing is like building these ARUs, you're trying to come into compliance with what your municipality wants. So what the bylaws might state in Hamilton, you would be very familiar with. And then if you tried to repeat that model in Collingwood, you'd probably
Mhm,
find that you make some adjustments here and there,
mhm,
and vice
mhm.
versa. It's the same in any municipality.
Yeah, our development charges in Hamilton are egregious. I think my last friend who was trying to do it was city wanted $70,000 development charge to go from third unit to fourth unit.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. So they just so while it's allowed, it's not financially feasible. So tell me
yeah,
about Collingwood. Is the city friendly? Town of
it's
Collingwood.
Yeah, so the town of Collingwood is fabulous. I mean, historically, Jeff and I moved to Collingwood in 2018 from Hamilton, funny enough. And so when we started doing this development, we were told the town of Collingwood is not going to play ball with you. They're not interested. They're not great to work with, blah, blah, blah. And, we were like, well, we're going to do it anyways. Um, and we developed this relationship with them along the way. And of course, you meet all these different people. And now the town of Collingwood is actually considered a leader in the space of creating rental housing. Like they are trying to position themselves so that people are looking to them and going, wow, I want to be like Collingwood. We have new players in council. We've got a new mayor. Who is fantastic, and she's very pro development. So we've got a new CBO who has gone in and she's kind of worked with her staff to make sure that they understand the ins and outs of the legalities for ARUs, and they want to see units built. One of the fantastic things is that the town of Collingwood has created this, right now it's called the Rapid ADU program, so accessory dwelling unit program. So there's grants that are available for people who are looking to build these units. And there's a dedicated housing specialist. So people can contact this housing specialist and say, hi, I have this property. I would like to build an ADU or an ARU. Is my property, does it qualify? And they will help you through the process. We've got pre-approved drawings that are on the website. Like Collingwood is really, really working hard and putting a lot of time and dedication towards making sure that there's rental stock available for its community.
Okay, so in my experience, I haven't heard of any municipality that friendly.
Yeah,
Have you heard of anyone like they've given you drawings that they will already pass?
correct, correct.
Yeah,
And
again,
this
I
is
don't
probably
think I've heard of that anywhere.
Yeah, and they've been working on this for a long time. They've been working on it for several years. They've got an entire task force. It's called the Affordable Housing Task Force. And they are every week or 2 weeks, whatever their schedule is now, they're meeting and they're saying, what are the needs of the community? What can we do to move this needle forward? What needs to happen? What are the checks that need to come into place? They want to see rental housing built. And as I said, there's grants that are available. There's, I think it's up to $10,000 that's available in grant funding. Don't quote me on that number. It's on their website. But they want to see the units built for sure.
Sorry, have you been using the grant funding?
We have not, no.
Is there a reason why you choose not to?
When we first started, or the last project that we started, I don't think that the grant funding was fully solidified at that point. So we just haven't.
Fantastic. And then, oh, okay, so you said you started off, you're doing basement suite apartment, you're buying single families, then you're suiting basements, was it?
Yeah.
All right, walk me through the process to get a basement done in Collingwood.
Well, I mean, it's the same as probably most municipalities, right? So you're going to start with getting your drawings done, submitting it to the town, permitting fees in
But
Collingwood.
they've already
So,
given you drawings that they'll pass.
well, when Jeff and I started, that wasn't the case,
Right,
right?
right,
That's
right.
relatively new. So when we started, that wasn't the case, and you don't have to use those drawings. So if
Hmm.
you want to use different drawings, you can go ahead and do that. Our permit application fee, I want to say, is around $500.
Hmm.
It's not astronomical. So in Collingwood, the bylaws state that if you take a single family home and you add an accessory dwelling unit, they differentiate this from a duplex. So what that difference is in square footage. So if I were to do a duplex, if I had 1,000 square feet up top and I made 1,000 square feet down below, that's considered a duplex. If I did a 60-40 split, then I've got an ARU or an ADU,
Hmm.
in which case I still achieve the objective of having a legal 2 unit home.
Hmm.
However, I don't pay land development fees.
Oh, that's nice.
Right, right. So that's a big, that's a big savings right up top.
Okay. Again, I think we're gonna flood the market in Collingwood. And then what? Like, let's use today's number. So actually, no, what was the budget to do one of these conversions back when you started?
So now again, I'm talking a basement apartment, not a
Hmm.
detached
Hmm.
suite.
Hmm. We'll get
We're
into
probably,
that.
yeah, probably 90 to 100.
Okay. And then what is it today-ish? What do you have the budget
Mm,
for a basement apartment conversion?
We're on the low end, we're 125. We're probably more realistically 150. Um, yeah, we're
Right.
probably around there. And I mean,
Efficiency.
we're not doing anything crazy, right? We're doing laminate countertops, we're doing stainless steel appliances, um, LVP floors.
Hmm.
So we're not going over the top with anything.
I just it just it, I always laugh every time I hear LVP, luxury vinyl plank. I just
Yeah,
love that there's an adjective in the acronym in the name of the product.
yeah. I mean, they're waterproof. They're very durable, right?
Yeah, yeah. I just because I'm old school, because I remember when we all made the transition from laminate uh from hardwood to vinyl plank, and
Yeah,
so I'm old
yeah.
school. It was all called vinyl plank, and then I only learned about the LVP more recently.
Come on, Erwin, catch up.
Yes, but again, I'm trying to be efficient with my words. So why would I add an adjective to the name of a product? And again, I'm the show is called Truth About Real Estate Investing. I'm not a fan of being manipulated, so I don't want them
Yeah.
to force upon me an adjective to describe the product. I don't know, hardwood is usually considered luxury, not vinyl plank. But I
Okay,
digress.
okay, we're using vinyl.
Yeah, and yeah, we used to use vinyl back in the day, one single sheet, right? I don't know if
Yeah.
you remember those days, but they were great. They were great for spills and cleanups, but there's a
Yeah.
lot more work to install it. Because if you get a rip,
Absolutely.
then it's ruined,
Yeah.
right? Versus vinyl plank, and this is for the novices. With a vinyl plank, if one piece gets damaged, you can swap it out, Right.
Well, and we've even kind of moved on from that. So
Oh.
now one of the things that our team is doing is, especially if it's a basement apartment or it's detached,
Mhm.
we're actually doing polished concrete.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so I really love it. What I have found is that in terms of cost per square foot, you're not really that much different. You're slightly more expensive.
Hmm.
Um, and truly and honestly, it's indestructible. Like,
Yeah.
you just can't, like, you don't have the problem where if a tenant's cat urinates on the floor, then it
Yeah.
soaks through. You don't
Yeah.
have all these
Because I just
problems.
had that. Yeah.
Right, and so, like, your worst case scenario is that maybe in 5 years, 10 years' time, you've gotta go in and repolish it, which is, rent a polisher from Home Depot, $400 and away you go. That's it. So, to me, if you're in the long-term game of buy and hold real estate, it makes
Hmm.
perfect sense.
Interesting.
Mhm.
And then, what do you like? That my first thought is that sounds cold on the feet. Do you just put down rugs?
In-floor heating.
Oh, wait. So you're
Mhm.
breaking up the floor to do this, or you're just going on top of the existing
Well, we
floor?
have to we have to anyways. We have to break up the floor usually anyways to run the plumbing and all the rest of it, so away you go.
I think you're the first to mention this on the show, and that's the first I've heard of the idea of concept of polished concrete. I like it.
Yeah. I really like it too. I wasn't sure, like, we did kind of a test run on
Yeah.
the first one, and I was like, "I don't know, maybe this will look industrial, I might regret it," but I'm so glad I did. Like, I
Right.
really love it, and it just gives the unit kind of an
Hmm.
elevated look. I
Hmm.
really like it.
My friend who does like $4 million house renovations, like the house is like 4 million when he's done. Like he's done
Yeah,
those on the whole main
yeah,
floor is polished
yeah,
concrete. It's heated.
yeah, yeah,
So
it's a
sorry,
really
with
high
even
end.
with the heating, it's does that add more to the budget, or is that still within line, same in line with LVP?
It ends up like it's not a ton more. I have to pull the exact numbers for you, but when
Right.
I ran the numbers, I was like, this just it makes more sense when you look at all the times that you've got to rip out the floor and replace it every time a tenant moves over. So
Hmm.
you call that what, $5,000 at a minimum by the time you
Hmm.
pay for labor and product. This has put you way ahead
This is awesome.
every time.
I
Yeah,
love these
every
tiny
time
little tidbits.
yeah, you just go in, clean it, done.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So then you use electric heated floors,
It's in floor. I think it's water actually.
right?
That's
But then
more.
how do you heat it? Via the heat watt hotter via the hot water heater? Oh,
Yeah, I think
cool.
so.
So it's even
Yeah,
more efficient.
it is very efficient.
Now you have radiant heat, which I don't think
Yeah,
anyone doesn't. I think everyone likes radiant heat.
everybody loves radiant heat.
This is super cool. Listeners, hope you're taking notice.
Yeah,
Listeners, honestly, I hope you're taking notes of this because again, this is the first I've heard, and again, like I think everyone would appreciate this. Do you
yeah, and
notice
then
does
the
it
other.
get you more rent by chance?
I mean, so the first one that we did it in, it was 2 bedrooms, 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. I think it was just shy of 800 square feet. This was a detached, not a basement apartment.
Mm-hmm.
And we were 2,300 plus
Mm-hmm.
hydro for
Which is
rent.
good. Great.
Yeah, yeah,
2,300 for 2 bedroom. That sounds great.
hmm,
In Collingwood. Wow.
yeah.
Fabulous. Okay. All right. So now we're getting into carriage homes, as you call them, or AR, whatever.
Detached ARUs.
Yes, detached ARU. And so you have to detach. You can't do an addition, or you choose not to do an addition.
I choose not to, more because again, Collingwood was not the same as Hamilton, where in Hamilton you've got primarily these long, thin town lots. Collingwood has our lots tend to be larger unless you're kind of in the older wartime area, which we're not in.
Oh, okay.
Um, so we're just using the lots that we have. We do have the space to do a fully detached. And also, I found, from a cost to build perspective, I'm not worrying about that fire separation. I'm not taking away windows from the existing residence.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm still coming into compliance with fire code in terms
Hmm.
of glass breaking and that type of thing.
Hmm.
And so, one of the things I really love about it is I try to match my tenant profiles. So, in the existing 2 unit building and the detached building, if I've got, a group of 25-year-olds, I'm going to try and aim for other younger people to go in there. And so we did that with our most recent project, and we're landscaping and doing all the rest of it once we're all done. And they, have all become friends. They've become this community. And they were like, can we build like a fire pit with Muskoka chairs in between the two houses and blah, blah. And it's like, of course you can. Like, they just love it.
Do you have pictures of any of these properties online?
I don't think that one is online yet because it's relatively new.
Well, this is neat. Looks like you have. Oh, I'll share what I'm looking at, so I won't be rude. You've posted drawings on your Instagram. For folks who want to follow Kelly, the dash investor, and there's underscores in there instead of spaces. The dash investor. Invest her. I just noticed that.
Yeah, invest her. Yeah, and Jeff is investor.
Now, how much? So I mentioned the detached versus attached because, again, like we mentioned, every municipality is different. I believe I think it's Oshawa that made things difficult. They probably since changed it. But I remember my friend, when he did an accessory dwelling, he had to attach it to the existing building. So it's nice that Collingwood doesn't make you do that. Now, what is the budget for a carriage home?
Detached. Yeah,
Sure.
so that our most recent project, now the numbers are going to be a little bit off because this was an all-in finished product, so it includes things like appliances. We ended at 260,000. Now that includes things like our municipal connecting in our municipal services. That includes curb cut and dedicated driveway, includes AC unit. So that's like a true all-in number with appliances, turnkey, tenant can walk in the door.
Are you in this business? Because that sounds cheap. And you have a dedicated driveway. So
Yeah,
the carriage home has its own parking spot on the lot, you're
it
saying.
has two spots.
I don't
So
I don't think I've seen that anywhere else.
yeah, Jeff and I, well, first of all, we've grown our team over the years, right? So we're not necessarily going out and hiring a whole bunch of subcontractors that are coming in and doing this for us. We've figured out ways to reduce cost and capital outlay as we have grown. So things like we've got a commercial account at Home Depot. So when our trades go and they buy something at Home Depot, if a sheet of drywall costs $25, we are buying it at $25. I will certainly pay them for their time to go, but they're not getting the opportunity to upcharge their setup as an authorized user on the account. So, we've spent a lot of time making sure that we're able to keep costs low. That's the detached ADU I was just telling you about.
For listeners' benefit, I'm sharing Kelly's Instagram, and she's doing a walkthrough of an ADU, and it actually looks quite large. How big is this
Yeah, so
detached?
that's just shy of 800 square feet. Yeah.
Okay, so this is really impressive. So
And so those accessory units in Collingwood, there's a calculation that's based off of the primary dwelling unit as to what the maximum square footage allowance is.
I can't think of anyone who's doing accessory dwelling units of this size for income purposes. Usually it's for personal use that you would get it this big, but I can't believe the budget you're doing it for. And you're building it on site. This isn't prefab, nothing.
No, we're building it on site, slab on grade.
Right. And then how do you finance these? You just have 260 grand lying around?
Yeah, so it's incremental, right? So we bought the existing property, I want to say 2019 ish. We bought it for 350,000. We then did the basement apartment, we refinanced it, and then it sat there for a number of years as a 2-unit home, and it continued to appreciate. And so when we went to buy this, we used the equity that was sitting in the home to buy it, or to build it rather.
So you didn't go out there for partners or nothing. Just
No. So this home is already, like, when we bought it on day one, this is owned with another individual.
okay. So this is fantastic. So you just went back and got more A lending money. So cheap money,
Yeah,
right?
we
Okay.
got,
I'm
well,
specifically sorry. Go ahead.
it was a HELOC on
Right.
the existing dwelling. Yeah.
Right. No, I specifically bring that up because the folks in the community who are in real rough shape financially didn't invest for cash flow. They either speculated and or
Mm,
they have hard money loans from private
yeah.
individuals, so they pay a lot more for them versus you just went to the bank.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, again, we built that equity into the property when we originally did the 2 unit property. And then it sat for a number of years before we touched it. So, I mean, for sure, when we're doing these, we're not going out and we're not borrowing private money for something that's that big. I mean, even if we did borrow private money, maybe it would be a portion of it. But I think that the big thing for us is all of the projects that we do are calculated. Um, well ahead of when any permit is applied for, before any shovel hits the ground. Like, we are calculating this out, and we are calculating it out at an appropriate interest rate. We are calculating things like market appreciation. We are trying to calculate what the active appreciation is, and we're trying to make sure that when we come out on the other side of this, when we refinance, we're coming out on the right side of it. We're not underwater.
Right.
So that's all done way, way at the beginning.
Okay. Because I was asking you before we start recording, how did you stay out of trouble? Because if I
I
remember when I
mean,
reached out to you to come on the show, I was saying, "How you doing? You're all right."
yeah.
Because a lot of people in the community aren't so all right. I think you know what I'm referring to. Now I get
Yeah.
it. It's because you run a clean operation. You keep your debt low.
Well,
You keep your cost of finances low.
yeah,
I
and I
can't
mean, like,
believe you're getting 800 square foot for 260,000.
I
As in,
mean,
like
so
you're doing it efficiently and cost effectively.
yeah, I mean, I don't want to say, we are immune to the economic uncertainties or the economic downfall that others have experienced.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong, there have been projects. I mean, we're highlighting, this is like any social media account, right? You're going to
Hmm.
highlight the high points,
Hmm.
right? But Jeff and I have gone through points in our career as real estate investors where we haven't always come out on top. Sometimes
Hmm.
we've lost money, sometimes we've broken even,
Hmm.
um, and sometimes we win. And that's part of the real estate venture, right? Like, it's
Hmm.
not a guaranteed win. It's a risk. It's a calculated risk, and you hope
Hmm.
that it's going to go according to plan, but you don't always win.
Hmm.
And so we have been impacted that way in the past. Um, I think with the onset of COVID, our our primary focus was to stabilize the existing portfolio that we had, make
Hmm.
sure that our tenants knew they were safe, made sure they knew they were taken care of.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, I also have a business partner, Ian. Ian Hawking, and
Hmm.
Ian,
He's awesome,
his
by the way.
background. Yeah, Ian's
And he's a
background is
veteran.
that,
He's been around forever.
yeah, he has been around forever. But before he was a real estate agent, he worked in the UK and he traded stocks. So um, he's got a really analytical brain. And so when interest rates were going up and up and up and up and up, you know, kudos to Ian. He was over there in the background doing projective analysis of interest rates and what was going to happen when we refinance and what we needed to do. So it wasn't just that we were existing in this world free floating. There was a lot of proactive damage control, if you want to call it. Right? We were just making sure that everything was going to go the way that it needed to go. And if it didn't look like it was going to go that way, what did we need to change now to make sure that when we got there, it was okay?
Can you be more specific for how did you make adjustments to your portfolio to stabilize it, especially for the benefit for the folks who are in similar situations?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, first things first, the very first thing that we did, communicated with our investors. That's number one. That was like, hey, I know you're scared. We've never been through this either. If you have questions, reach out to us at all times. Our investors have access to our back office. So they can see every single dollar that we have spent at all times. They can see every single receipt. They can see our communication with the tenants. They can see if extra garbage tags have been ordered. So there's this really high level of transparency
Mm-hmm.
that we set up from the start that we have with our investors. That was a non-negotiable for us. Number two, it was going out to all of our tenants. Hi, I know you're scared. I know you don't know if you're going to have a job next week. I know you don't know if the world is going to stay open or be closed, or like nobody knew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a conversation of, um, I need you to not avoid us if you can't make your rent payments. If you can't make your rent payments, please call us. We're here to support you. We know that this is a time that is very uncertain for everybody, not just you. So don't feel like you're alone in this bubble. Please reach out to us if you're having
Mm-hmm.
problems.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we did was we stopped taking cash flow payments. We just stopped. We just allowed the bank accounts to continue to accumulate a cash reserve because
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know, living in Collingwood, a large part of the working class community is in tourism. So many of them are working in the restaurant industry, which closed down. Some of them are working in the salon industry, those closed down. So all of those things we needed to take into account. So those bank accounts continue to accumulate a cash reserve. We changed our threshold. At the very beginning of COVID, our threshold per property was that each bank account, and each one of our properties has an individual bank account, each bank account needed to have a minimum reserve of $5,000. That changed as soon as COVID happened. We were changing that number to 10,000 because we didn't know how long our tenants were going to go without income or being able to pay rent. Of course, that situation kind of changed when they introduced, what was it, CERB? Is that what it was
Mm-hmm.
called?
Mm-hmm.
The CERB payment. So we had a couple of hiccups along the way, but for the most part, that was stabilizing. And then when interest rates started to go up, we needed to look at hypothetical situations. We were running spreadsheets. Okay, this is our rental income. These are our expenses. If our interest rate goes from, I'm making up numbers right now, but say 3% to 6%, what is the minimum amount we need coming in? And can we cut expenses anywhere? So that's kind of what I mean by stabilization and projective
Right.
analysis.
Yeah. So you didn't ignore the numbers, or you're tightening your belts, hoarding cash for a rainy day.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
putting your head down and digging deep.
Right. And vacancy. Did you have much vacancy in your portfolio?
I have zero vacancy right now.
Right. So I don't know if you know or read the news about all these folks who are going under, but you're like so the opposite.
I do read the news, and I know there are a lot of people who are suffering right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
And, my heart really goes out to them. I don't want to say again that Jeff and I have been immune from any of it.
Hmm.
We just have really put our head down and worked really hard. There
Right.
have been many, many, many nights where we've both worked all day long. We come home, we do the family dinner time, put the kids to bed, all
Hmm.
the rest of it, and then we're sitting at the dining room table until midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning going through all of this stuff.
Hmm.
So it's been a hustle.
Which is awesome, because some of these full-time investors out there are losing their shirts and then losing their investors' shirts. Well, you do this, you don't quit. Like, and the points I want to highlight to the listener is, like, you have operational efficiency. You're getting renovations done for like cheaper than I think anyone else is doing it. You have no vacancy in your portfolio. Uh, you're protecting your investor's investment, right?
Mhm.
And that is not common among all the folks who are losing their shirts that are in the news, right? Because they're having it difficult. They do a lot of private money to finance the acquisition of the properties and the renovations. They have poor operational efficiency, as in they're vacant while they're waiting for, and they're not getting renovated. And if you're not being renovated and you're vacant, you're bleeding money, right? Which is the opposite of what you're talking about. Yeah, we all have hardship, but it sounds like you've done everything you can.
Well, we're doing as much as we can, right? And if, at the end of the day, if something goes sideways, at least we
Yeah,
know we tried as hard as we can. And I
yeah.
think a big part of this, Erwin, is honestly it all comes back to the fact that we keep our why very clear and at the forefront of everything.
Hmm.
It's very defined. Our end goals are very clear and very defined.
Hmm.
And Jeff and I have both, before we started in real estate investing, we've seen a lot. We're both funeral directors. So we've seen people at the lowest point in their lives. And, one of your questions early on was, why is your Instagram called the Dash Investor?
Hmm.
Um, the reason is because as a funeral director, there's a poem and it's called The Dash. And it talks about the dash that you see on people's tombstones. You have a date of birth, dash, and a date of death. And life is everything that happens during that dash. And there's nothing about us that cares to be a horrible memory within that dash for somebody else, whether it's a tenant or an investor or like nobody. Life is hard enough as it is. We don't need to make it more complicated. We're all working towards a common goal, and that is to create clean, safe, and appropriate rental housing for the communities. And it needs to be transparent. So we've got very, very, very clear parameters within which we work.
Amazing. All right, I'll find time to read this in a second. By Linda Ellis.
Yes.
All right, I'll read it in a bit. And folks, I'll post this to the show notes. Apparently, she's rewritten it as well. Maybe she's modernized it. Yeah, it's a little bit long. Not that long. Such a millennial. It's long. It's not even
It is.
a page,
It
really.
is. Yeah, it's pretty long.
So sorry, I want to go back to the yeah. So why important? Yeah. Again, again, the show is about real estate investing. The whole point of it is to extract from successful people how they do it and why they do it and all sorts of things. And again, like my first comment when I reached out to you about a few months ago is like, "How you doing? You all right?"
I know. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm doing great.
Yes, because yeah, because my point. A lot of people aren't doing that well in certain communities. So and I know you hang out with a lot of these people as well.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's why we have people like you on the show who are not immune, but
Yeah.
you're getting through it, and I imagine you're doing quite well.
Well, and I think like the biggest thing that I try and reiterate to new investors who come to me and they're like, what do I need to be careful of? I, Anybody can look like a genius in real estate investing when the economy is good and interest rates are low, right?
Hmm.
You have to make sure that you are calculating out what you're doing. This isn't a speculation. This is a calculated risk. It's making sure that those numbers are in place and they're put in there at a very conservative number.
Hmm.
So even when we were acquiring properties during the height of COVID, when people were buying, 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 and they were all these bidding wars, our objective was not to win the gold medal for paying the highest price for a piece of real estate.
Hmm.
We had our numbers. We knew what the highest amount of money was that we could pay for a property, and we didn't go a penny past that. We
Hmm.
were not putting our appreciation numbers in at anything more. I think the highest number we put it in was 5%
Hmm.
max.
Fabulous. And then, can you share if you were to do one of these projects today? How much is the house you have to buy today to do these projects with?
In Caldwell, geez, there's all kinds of, again, because Collingwood is so in favor of this type of project,
Yeah.
you could do this to a wartime bungalow if you
Hmm.
wanted to,
Hmm.
or you could buy a 3,000 square foot house in a subdivision. So I guess it all depends on what you're starting with. Um, let's just go with some round numbers. if you were looking for a property to do this in, let's say you could go 550 to 600 as an entry point as a single family home. You're probably looking at an ARV somewhere around 750.
Sorry, what renovations are we doing to it?
So when we're doing it, we're doing like an entire basement suite. And then I usually reserve, depends on the condition of the house, 10 to 20,000 for the upstairs unit. So painting, floors if necessary, replacement of appliances if necessary. And that number also includes paving of the driveway because we have to typically make an additional parking space.
So your total rent out to the house is somewhere around 140, 160.
We've never, so for a basement apartment, we've never done 160. I'd say 150 would be max.
Right.
We're probably closer to 130.
Amazing. And then do you immediately do the and then do you rent out the building immediately, or you do this in parallel with building the accessory dwelling unit?
Yeah, that's a bit of a trick. So it depends on what's going on. So if the upstairs unit needs more renovations, again, we have to tie in, right? So we're in terms of maximizing efficiencies for cost. When I'm looking at creating a basement apartment, if my upper floor kitchen is on the back right hand side of the house, most probably my lower level kitchen is going on the back right hand side of the couch because I'm tying into the water that's there, right? So I'm not doing all these crazy things. So we try and get the upper level rented as quickly as possible just to offset costs that are going out, but it can be a bit of a trick depending on what needs to be done to the lower unit and also if the driveway needs to be dug up and repaved to expand. So those are some of the variables that come into play.
Right.
But when the renovation is all done, yes, we do get both units rented on a 1-year lease. And then once those leases are signed, then we have the property reappraised and go back for a refinance.
And then that's when you go, and that's how you finance the carriage. I've been using every single term. The carriage house, ARU. So then you go. That's how you finance the building of the third unit.
Correct.
Right. And then you mentioned earlier, but you're getting it done for about 260, and it's around 800 square foot, and it has its own separate driveway.
Yes.
It was absolutely wild. And sorry, and then do you have an ARV after the ARU?
I do. So we
I'm laughing because of all the acronyms. Do you have an after repair value for the now 3-family home?
Yeah. So again, depending on the size of the home, it's going to vary, could be significantly, but the one that we just did, just valued as in 2 weeks ago at 1.1.
Oh wow! So you're getting your money's worth. You're getting an uplift.
Yeah. So one of the things that we found when we went back for a refinance, when we did the third detached unit, is that this More Homes Built Faster Act is an Ontario act. So what that means is that when we went to refinance, the big banks, CIBC, TD, Scotia, they don't count the detached ARU as part of the valuing. They can only count what's there. So what we did was we went to credit unions. So Meridian Credit Union, Desjardins, and there's a third one that was willing to look at it. But when we have like 2 units in the primary dwelling and then the detached ARU, we found that the credit unions were the only ones that would do the refinancing of that. I don't know if others have anything different, but that was just for our case. It was only the credit unions.
And what are the terms they're offering?
So we did a 5-year, and we were at, going from memory here, I think it was right at 6.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And that's for the whole house. Like it's not right.
Correct. Yep.
Amazing. And And then you mentioned fourth units at the beginning of the conversation. Where's this
Yeah.
fourth unit going?
Well, so this is something, again, when I say that Collingwood is really in favor of creating rental housing supply, Collingwood is talking about allowing up to 4 dwelling units per residentially zoned lot. So we haven't done it yet. That hasn't been approved as part of anything yet. It's just a conversation that's happening in the background. If it did get approved, again, it will be one of those things where before we decided to move forward with, spending another 260,000 for a fourth unit, I would want to make sure that I can refinance out in the end. Who's going to finance me?
Right.
Because again, if that's a Collingwood specific bylaw that you can have 4 units on a residentially zoned lot, the Bank of Canada doesn't care about that.
Amazing. Super cool. Yeah, because I know some people. I know some people are already getting ahead of that. They're putting in a basement for their garden suite, ARU,
Yeah,
ADU.
that could be one. Sure. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then I remember when we first when you had Cherry and I over to your home, but like what, 2 years ago. You have a significant holding in Sudbury. How are you splitting your attention? Is Collingwood now
Yeah.
you're taking most of your time because that's where you see most of the opportunity?
So we have, again, we have portfolios across 3 different communities.
Hmm.
We do own the Sudbury portfolio with another partner who admittedly is taking a huge part of that workload. We
Mm.
have established property management in all
Hmm.
of those communities. So we have a property management team that is operating in Collingwood, dealing with the
Hmm.
day-to-day nuances. We have the same thing that's happening in Sudbury.
Hmm.
So we've really systemized everything. We really only hear from anyone if something's gone wrong.
Hmm.
So hopefully that's not very often. Um, when there's renovations that need to be done, Jeff and I take the lead on that. If there's appliances that need to be replaced, we take the lead on that. If there's HVAC that needs to be dealt with, we take the lead on that. But for the most part, property management is dealing with, tenant delinquencies, serving notices,
Hmm.
property maintenance in terms of grass cutting, snow removal, what have
Hmm.
you. So
I remember a few years ago you were making like weekly trips to Sudbury. What was it? Just
yeah.
because it was a big repositioning going on at the moment?
No. So I was making weekly trips to Sudbury. And I don't want to isolate that to just me. That was me and my husband Jeff and our other partners we were all alternating taking trips. But we went up, we bought a portfolio of
Hmm.
property that was there, but then we needed to make sure we were the active working partners. We needed to make sure that those properties performed the way that we projected that they were going to perform. And so in order to do that, we needed to hire contractors, create units, what have you. For anybody who's run any type of construction project, you have this high level of awareness. What's the saying? When the cat's away, the mice will play, right? So these trips to Sudbury were, I would get up 4:30 in the morning. I'd be on the road by 5:30. I would drive for 3 hours. I'd be there by 8:30. Contractors never knew what day I was going to be there. I would show up at 8:30. I would go to each one of the properties and make sure that the projects were where the contractor had said that it was going to be, and mostly they were. And then I would drive home if there was anything that needed to be dealt with, if I needed to set up new corporate accounts, if I needed to go to the banks, I would do any of that during that trip. And then I would get back on the road and I would drive home for 3 hours and we'd be home by dinner.
Amazing. And I specifically bring it up because, for example, the folks who are going bankrupt in Northern Ontario, I don't think anyone was checking on the properties. Because if anyone was, why would they continue to lend on them, and why would people continue to lend to them, knowing that they had massive structural vacancy issues in that portfolio, right? And again,
Yeah,
that's why I specifically asked you about that, because that's how you dealt with it to make sure things were
yeah,
going, as operationally smooth as possible, that work was getting done on time.
Yeah.
minimizing vacancy.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
and
mean,
I
it's
and I
tough.
think that's the way to go.
It's tough to say, Erwin. Like, I know a lot of the people that did investments in some of the companies that have declared bankruptcy or are declaring bankruptcy. You know, some of those people are very high net worth individuals who have very busy jobs, very busy lives, and they
Mhm,
put a lot of trust into people who were quote unquote working partner experts.
mhm,
And I just feel terribly for them because they just did none of them deserved that.
mhm,
None of them deserved it. You know, as a working partner, myself and my husband, we take a great deal of pride in what we do. And
mhm,
one of our big things is transparency to investors. So, you know, it shatters me that people that were in our world,
mhm.
we sat at tables with, you know, you and I are out there working really hard to make sure things are the way that they're supposed to be, and these people were doing the exact opposite, and it just it's disheartening.
Mhm. It's just to me, it's just bonkers that nobody. It feels like nobody was doing drive-bys at least, right?
Yeah, but if you live in a different province, or you live 10 hours away, or you live
Mhm,
like who knows
mhm.
what their situation is.
So I mentioned it before. I'll mention it again. This is why I don't private lend because it's just to me, it's a lot of work, no different than owning. If I have to do
Yeah.
drive-bys, then I might as well own the property rather than lend on it.
Yep, yep, yep. And you know, one of the things, one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was actually from my accountant, our accountant is Shard Hansra. And, you know, when we were very new to real estate investing, you know, all of this talk about private lending and you can make so much money and blah, blah, blah. We were like, Shard, do you think that this is a good idea? And he was like, if you want to lend out privately $100,000, I need you to know before you do that that you can lose $100,000 and still be okay because that's the level of risk you are entering into. Yes, you can make a lot of money doing private lending, but it hurts really hard when you lose it.
Yeah.
And I never forgot that. Like that is the baseline for any decision that we make, whether it's
Hmm.
self-directed RRSPs,
Hmm.
private, all the rest of it. And if I, as a somebody who's developing, am borrowing from somebody $100,000, I need to know at my core that I can access $100,000 if this investment goes sideways, so that I can pay them back.
Yeah, I wish everyone was like that. We wouldn't have all these problems.
Well, yeah,
No.
we started from a very different place, Erwin. Like, I grew up very, very, very poor, right? Like, we were standing in, have stood in line at food banks, have slept on a cot in the hostel, have, you know, been somebody who has utilized um, gear to income housing. So we really started with nothing. I know what it's like to have nothing, and I don't wish that on anybody. And I certainly don't care to be the reason why somebody's put in that position.
Amazing. I don't want to. I don't mean to pry. How did you find yourself in that situation? Is just how this a
Mhm.
family situation?
Yeah, I was a kid. So it was just, you know, I had a single parent, had my dad. My dad got cancer when I was quite young. I'm the oldest of three. And when my dad died, I was 21, and my two younger siblings were under age of majority to be considered an adult. And so what that meant is that I became their legal guardian. And I had to figure out real fast how I was going to provide housing for, like, how was this going to work? Because prior to that, we were living in a geared to income apartment building that was based on my dad. And then when my dad died, that was over. So we worked with, I guess she's a social worker, and she just really was interested in us and cared for us and really expedited making sure that we had housing. And so my brother needed to get a house that was close to his high school so that he could walk to high school. So she found him a basement apartment. And I remember on the day that we were moving him into that basement apartment, I said, I don't know how I'm ever going to repay you for this or thank you for this. I know that the speed that you got us this apartment is not the average. I know you worked really hard at this. I don't know how I'm ever going to be able to pay you back. And standing in the front lawn is literally what changed everything for me, because she said, I don't want you to pay me back. When you have an opportunity, I want you to pay it forward. And so that is literally the moment that I was like, I have to find a way to create housing for people.
Okay, that's not what I expected the show to be about. Have you shared the story publicly before?
I have. Yeah, I have shared it.
Oh boy. And then how's it been going? Oh, I actually haven't asked. Like, how many houses in Collingwood have you converted?
We've done a substantial number.
A dozen? Six?
We're
50?
more than a dozen.
More than a dozen.
Mm-hmm.
And they all have basement apartments, and they all have
They
accessory
all do.
dwelling
They
units?
all do. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And you've done this all with partnerships, mainly like equity partnerships?
Yeah. So not all of them. Some of them we own in corporations that we've established.
Hmm.
Um, some of them are by way of co-venture, joint venture partnerships.
Amazing. Can I ask how many co-venture partners you have?
Um, it's a good question.
It's too many to count, just like your
It's
properties.
it's no, it's actually it's not that many. It's a handful, and the thing is that they've been successful with their initial transaction with us, and so because they've been successful, they want to do another one. And for us, it's always about the relationship first and about the people that we're partnering with. So we want to make sure that those people are taken care of. We're available to answer calls or emails when they need it. Um, and so we've just kind of stuck with this, initial group of people that we co-ventured with, and it's been a good journey so far.
Amazing. And can I ask, did you meet these folks at Keyspire?
I've met them in a multitude of different places. Some of them, yes, are through the Keyspire education platform. Some people I've met through meetups. So it's a whole bunch of different things, different ways that I've met them.
Amazing.
Hmm.
Okay, we're so out of time, but I need to ask you about Home Sweet Home.
Oh, sure.
What is
So
tell us about Home Sweet Home.
yeah, so back in the winter, Jeff and I were approached by a couple who own a production company. Um, and they had this idea. Again, they have no background in real estate. Their background is actually in health and wellness travel. And so, but they wanted to do a show on real estate. And so they were like, we hear you guys are our go-to people. We want to do the show. We have all of the equipment and skill set necessary to make this a show. We just don't have the knowledge. So did you want to, is that something that you'd be interested in doing? So Jeff and I thought about this, and kind of naively, we were like, yeah, sure, that's no problem. Like, we'll just show up, 20 minutes here and there and do some filming. We had no idea that this was like, when you're filming, it's several hours a day. So we've been filming for a couple of months now, and we've now the show is going to be airing on Rogers in the fall, and it's about the creation of accessory dwelling units or accessory residential units or carriage houses or whatever you want to call it. And so there's going to be the show, which is episodes, 30-minute episodes. And then there's also a sub series that can be found on YouTube. And right now there's only one community so far, but it's the community of Collingwood. And we're going out and we're interviewing thought leaders, and we're getting information about what they're doing in the community, how we can contribute to the rental housing stock. We've got an interview with the mayor on there who's talking about, what's happened with the Affordable Housing Task Force and how she's pro-development. Yeah, so if you just go across the top, Erwin, where it says by region,
Mm-hmm.
and you click on
It's only
Collingwood.
one. Collingwood.
The only one so far, yeah. Um,
Let's talk about you. 8,000 properties.
no, not that many. But if you scroll down, you'll see YouTube videos there that are, with different thought leaders in the community. So, and I think it's really important to get that feedback and that information from people who are doing really good work within the community for the greater good.
And these people are just doing this out of the kindness of their hearts to create a
Well,
series on this.
so So it's part of our series. So again, Collingwood is very pro-development. So we approached Mayor Hamlin, and of course, she was so excited about this. And Marg Shivaniti, she has been a housing advocate for years and years and years. If you just Google her name, there are a ton of articles that come up. She was instrumental in the creation of the Affordable Housing Task Force. She's been, a social housing advocate for years and years. Doug Linton is the former chair of the Affordable Housing Task Force. Des Von Teichman, he is the owner of Royal LePage Locations North Brokerage. And he's very in support of what we're doing. So it's just like a lot of people who are really in support of seeing growth within the community through the gentle density of ADUs.
So most municipalities have issues around NIMBYism, as in like the neighbors do not want development, even if it's considered soft. Do you know what's different about Collingwood that this is happening?
Yeah. It's not different. There are always going to be people who are not in my backyard, and if you listen to council talk about this, or they're not, they don't have blinders on. They are aware that NIMBYs are a thing, and so what they're trying to do is they're going out and they're educating people on what's the difference between affordable housing and attainable housing. What's the difference between an ADU and having a geared to income housing block built? So they're going out and they're helping people to understand, and they're helping people to understand how this helps to support job growth and economic growth and all types of things within the community, so that they can take people from not in my backyard to yes in my backyard. Um, and they are very open and receptive to the questions and concerns of the NIMBYs, because they want, as opposed to being a keyboard warrior and going and putting it on Facebook about how much they hate it and they think it's a dumb idea. They're like, come forward and share your concerns with us. We want to know so that we can address it.
Yeah, I still don't know how you guys are getting this through, because NIMBYism, it's underrated how it's the cause for a lot of expense for developers. So I'll just leave it at that, so we don't get political or anything. So folks they can see the show both on YouTube and on Rogers this fall.
You got it.
Amazing. And quickly, homesweethome.co, and then that's the website for Home Sweet Home.
That's it. Yeah.
Amazing. And then like you are a realtor as well, so you will help people do what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. And then also, for people who don't know, even if you're not interested in investing in Collingwood, if you're looking at doing this in another community, and the website should be right on that Home Sweet Home website. There's a website called ADU Search, and I think it might be .ca. Or when if you've got the website up, maybe have a look. And what it does is it brings up a mapping of different communities, and it is color coded, and it literally shows you all of the houses that are a yes to have an accessory dwelling unit that are coded in green, a maybe that's coded in yellow, And yep, there you go. ADU search, discover potential in your own backyard.
Yeah,
So,
ADUsearch.ca.
yeah. And so you can look up your community and see, if your property
Yeah,
is
Hamilton's not
there.
even on here.
It's relatively new. It's relatively new. And the only reason that Collingwood is on there is because, again, our housing specialist really pushed. She worked with them when this was new. And I think, in fact, the first person to bring this to my attention was actually Mike Seal. I think Windsor was the first community to have this. And then it's branched out from there.
Wonderful tool. And,
Mhm.
again, I jest that Hamilton's not on here.
Well, that's okay.
They're not the only ones not on here.
Yeah, there's not. Well, no, not. They're not on there yet, Erwin.
I wonder what it is. I wonder if this is just a list of the more friendly cities towards ADUs. I wonder if that's what it is.
Good question.
That might be it. And so, Kelly, where can you have, if folks want to reach out to you, they want to say they want to hire you to be a realtor, invest with you, how can they reach you?
Yeah, so you can send me an email. It's Kelly at
Oh, hang on.
Caldwell
Remember, this is the internet. It's forever. You want to give it your email address? I have to warn everyone.
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's Kelly at caldwellrealestategroup.com.
And it's Caldwell. It's not Coldwell. I don't know if anyone makes that mistake. It's not just me.
All the time.
Oh,
All
yeah.
the time. And then, I mean, if you're interested in contacting us, you can go to the Home Sweet Home website, and there's contact information there that people can reach us at.
Oh, sorry. Is the Home Sweet Home site yours, or is just your contact info just happens to be there?
Yeah, so there's contact info there. If somebody emailed there and said, "Hi, I'm looking to get a hold of Kelly," they would let me know.
That's so cute. That's amazing. All right. So Kelly, I always like to give my guests the final word because I tend to ask a lot of questions. So a final word is yours. Anything you want. Maybe words of wisdom. Maybe you want to read the dash quote to folks.
Final words of wisdom. That's it. You're gonna put me on the spot, Erwin. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind right now is that if you're feeling like stuff is tough, it's tough for everybody. You're not alone. Nobody's alone right now. There are a lot of people out there that are going through the same thing. It's really easy as real estate investors to get your head in a space where you think you're the only one that's going through it and you're operating in a silo. Reach out to people, talk to people. You're definitely not alone. So
Yeah, again, yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And the email, if you have problems, is Kelly at
That's it.
And yeah, I'm there for folks as well. I take calls all the time for people in trouble. But I think right now is a wonderful litmus test for anyone's portfolio, right? Like the longest it told me to sell any of my properties was 3 weeks, right? And so I'm comfortable because I was able to sell off some properties and pay off a lot of debt and have a lot of cash now on hand. So again, like I said, like there's a lot of people who can't sell right now. So that's what the market's telling you about your portfolio. So let that be a lesson to everyone. Yeah. Versus, I imagine that people would probably like to buy your properties. So this kind of tells you you've done something right, is what I mean. Right?
Thank you.
Like you got an appraisal for 1.1. Like that's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's sick. All right, Kelly, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was great chat.
Yeah, we should connect soon in person in the real world. Thanks again.
Let's do it. Okay, have a great day.
Thank you for watching. If you want to learn how to invest in real estate from scratch, my team teaches beginners how to use the #1 investment strategy that I personally use in a virtual free training class every month. Go to investortraining.ca/YouTube to register for our next class. The link's also in the description as well. I publish at least 2 to 3 videos a week here, so subscribe if you want to keep learning from seasoned investors like myself and my guests. And if you're just starting out, feel free to ask questions and comment below, and I do the best to answer each of those comments and questions myself. Again, if you're ready to learn the nitty-gritty about real estate investing from a professional investor, register for our next virtual class. That's at investortraining.ca/YouTube. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.